uh, there is a very high amount of irrational optimism that the first time founders have. The 10-year-old Amit basically was not afraid that it has never been done elsewhere in the world. India is going to be an amazing country to be in for the next 20 years.
Today, I'm very excited. My guest is Amit Agarwal. He's the co-founder and CEO of NoBroker. It's one of India's first and largest PropTech unicorns that eliminates middlemen from real estate transactions. In this conversation, Amit shares lessons from that journey. He talks about the evolution of his mindset as a founder, how irrational optimism often is the engine of a startup's role, and we discuss the challenges on how do you get started in a difficult to disrupt industry. And without any further ado, I give you Amit Agarwal. Amit, thank you very much for joining us today. I'm super happy and super excited to be having this conversation with you.
No, very glad to be here. Thank you.
Cheers. So I think what I would like to start off with is talking to two different Amits. I'd like to talk to the Amit in his 30s who set up NoBroker and the Amit of today running the PropTech unicorn NoBroker. So how would the two different Amits describe NoBroker? How would Amit talk about it right when he started? And what is the description now? What is the evolution now?
So I think the earlier Amit was too naive. And I think there is a very high amount of irrational optimism that the first time founders have, like me, because we have never done it before. So we really do not know the challenges that await us in future. And the 10-year-old Amit basically was not afraid that it has never been done elsewhere in the world, and we are doing it for the first time, and what type of problems may come. Now, with whatever I have seen in the 10 years, although it has worked out decently well till now, but today's Amit, if you ask without the 10-year knowledge, I would be very scared doing no broker, thinking of all things which can go wrong. But I think the innocence and the irrational optimism that a first-time founder has, I think that was one of the reasons why basically we were able to do it.
I think irrational optimism is something that every founder needs. But let's understand the evolution. So that irrational optimist, that 30-year-old first time founder, what was his description of the company? What did the company do then in your mind? And how would you describe the company today?
So that way, if you see, not the fundamental philosophy hasn't changed. So that is something which is great about us, that if you took a principle, we named it in such a way that you cannot go away from that principle, and we just stuck by it over the 10 years. So if you look at my presentation, the presentation that we used to present 10 years back versus today, the essence is same, which is basically how can we reduce the transaction cost, why to pay such a high amount to a broker. So that basically the basic remains same. Yes, but in terms of the other services that we'll do, we were not very clear as to what other things we'll do when we started. We had some brave, vague idea, and we did mention that yes, we'll do rental agreement, we'll do this, we'll do that. But I'm really amazed as to how in the past 10 years, customers have accepted us, customer forgave our initial mistakes, and how such a great team got formed, and how we could basically do things right from home interiors to loan to legal agreement to furniture to no brokerhood. So that I'm really amazed at how team has accomplished it and how customers have accepted it.
I mean, there's doubling down on the brand promise, and then there is naming your company NoBroker, right? So that is like, you know what you're getting. And I think that's awesome that the philosophy hasn't changed. The brand promise remains the same today, 10 years, 20 years down the line.
Correct.
I think we might get into the expansion of products a bit later. I think that's a very interesting thing that NoBroker has done. Much more interestingly is how it's done it, which we'll touch upon. But sticking to the 30-year-old Amit, Amit, you had the stereotypical Indian career dream. You were an IIT, IIM guy. You went into consulting, then you were director at ANZ Bank, right? So this is typically when I chart my career where I wanted to be when I was in my master's. You were pretty much doing
Yeah.
it. And
Correct.
then, you have a child, another one's on the way, and you say, look, hey, I want to start up. There are a lot of people right now that are in that same path that believe that the mold was cast for them. There are a lot of
Yeah.
people today that are directors of banks or senior PMs or folks that are in their 30s, built a name for themselves and are growing in their career journey, but are playing with the idea of entrepreneurship. So, how did you think about that risk? How did you take that decision and build that conviction to come out? And once you explain that, just what is your advice to people that are in the same space right now?
So I think perhaps a mixture of both the things. So one is a zoom out view. So the zoom out view is that India is going to be an amazing country to be in for the next 20 years. We are far behind. We are one of the fastest growing large economies in the entire world. Every problem that you and I see when we step out from our from our home, or when we are even in our home, every problem is waiting to get solved, and we are going to reach where US is, where China is. So one is a zoom out view, that this is all the problems that we see out there are opportunities, and lots of money is to be made, lots of good companies are to be made, and if you're a builder, this is a great place to be in. So one is that zoom out view, because unless you have that zoom out positive view, then the minor intricacies will basically bog you down. And you need that zoom out view. So one is that. And second is the one which basically you also alluded to when we were talking earlier, is that not taking the risk is the biggest risk. So if you have to make wealth, it can only be made either through inheritance or through uh, equity. Either you participate in somebody else's equity journey, or you create your own equity journey. What happened with me at the inception was that I basically felt the life is too comfortable. And if you are trying to basically find a very good time to launch, that time will never come. It's like saying that I want to invest in stock market and I will wait for that time. That time will never come. So either you start jumping in, start experimenting, or, and moreover, perhaps when, for anybody, for the same thing happened for me also, that the thought of leaving your job just basically freezes you. When you think about the possible things that can go wrong, many a times it freezes you. But if you zoom out again, you will see that nothing much wrong can happen. What the worst that can happen is 1 year, 2 year, whatever you're going to earn, that will go away and some of your savings will go away. But for a 35 year career, it is nothing compared to the possible happiness that you might get if you pursue what you really love doing.
I think that makes complete sense, right? There is that opportunity cost of not having built something that you're tinkering with. And why not build it now when the opportunity is abound, right? Like there's so many exciting problems to solve. And that is the approach. And I think that ties into your irrational optimism. Speaking of problems to solve, it's kind of counterintuitive. You were in consulting, then you were in banking, and now suddenly you're going into the world of real estate. There were so many problems for you to look at if entrepreneurship or equity building was your journey, right? So tell us, how did you zero in on this is the problem that I wish to solve, and walk us through how you validated whether or not other people were facing this.
So I think, see, because in entrepreneurship, whatever you are doing is something which is extremely unique. So nobody has ever done it exactly the same way, right? Otherwise, you will not be doing it.
Yeah.
You might be doing a specific geography, or there might be a twist towards your solution, but there's something new that basically you are doing. So, and when you are doing something new which has never been tested before fully, then the data is always insufficient, which basically means that you need to, your confidence is going to get tested a lot. Which basically in turn means that you should, if it's going to be amazing if you are your own customer, because then you can empathize that no, this is going to work out. All of these are teething issues. So before, I'm just taking again a big picture view, that as an entrepreneur, we are venturing into something which has never been done before. Of course, there are going to be issues. Of course, 9 out of 10 investors are not going to invest, so they are going to have a negative view. Of course, a large number of your friends will say great idea while getting scared internally. So you're on your own broadly. So
Yeah.
if the problem is something that you empathize with, then the chances are higher that you are going to continue on the journey. So the same thing basically happened with us. All three of us We had faced issues with brokers. All three of us were basically puzzled as to why are we paying this guy so much of money when it is connecting two people. So that's why we could ask a question which nobody had asked, which was counterintuitive, that why do we need a broker? Uh, so I think that is basically how it started, and that was the big picture view.
I think opportunistically now is the time for me to let you know that that was a decade ago. I felt this problem exactly a year ago, and I'm sitting in the house I found today thanks to NoBroker. So
Oh,
that is so that just tells you that the scope of the problem is so massive and miles to go,
yes.
before we sleep. And I should actually finally say thank you for finally getting me a place to stay. So I think one thing is finding the problem. What is a pattern I've noticed with your company, and I'd like you to riff on this a little bit, is you're not only finding the problems, but the business models that you're putting around them tend to be unique. They tend to be slightly different. To illustrate, there's the core philosophy of what No Broker does. There other people would have created different listing platforms, which is a well understood business model, right? So No Broker was a departure. C2C was a departure. You did packers and movers. You were the first in the market to aggregate packers and movers, right? So one is the problem, which is the identification of. But then what I find to be quite intriguing about what NoBroker is doing is also the business models around it. So, just walk us through what process you typically follow, or take us back to the boardroom. How are these decisions made? Because I think there is a really cool story, a really interesting thing for us to learn.
So what typically happens is that we don't tell our board what new initiative we are trying to do. First of all, we say, okay, let us try internally. Let us
Hmm,
see if this holds any water. After we do the experiment, then we'll take the result to the board. And if something doesn't work out, then we basically shut it down. Thankfully, it hasn't happened until now.
hmm,
So I'll give you two examples. One is the core real estate, and another is the packer mover that you mentioned. So in the core real estate, we said, hey, we are going to connect both the parties together, which is great. But many people said that, hey, we are busy in a meeting right now. We love the idea of no broker, but can you still have a person who can do the basic coordination and the admin stuff that, okay, you need to go at 4 p.m. to this place, this address. So we said, okay, see, the problem makes sense. So we had a dilemma that either we should stick to the product angle, or should we adhere to what customer is asking and modify our solution? So
hmm,
no one in the country has done this before, right? Either you get a broker who basically come with you physically, but he said, okay, can there be a phone relationship manager who is going to
hmm,
be available on phone and will do this coordination, and he will handle 50 more customers, so that is economical for us. So no one had done it, and after we sold the first plan, the relationship manager plan, there was no relationship manager. So we had to figure out, hey, somebody become a relationship manager? And then he became, and then the tech came and so on. So one is a very, very first principle thinking that, okay, whatever customer wants, let's basically give that solution. And let's not be very arrogant or stubborn about what we want. See, for us, the best solution is everything has to be product based. There should be no human intervention. That is most profitable for us.
hmm,
And we offer that. We have plans which are completely product. But if there is somebody who wants help, then we are going to modify our solution to that. So that's one. Second comes packers and movers. So in packers and movers, we tinkered with many approaches. Earlier, we thought, what if we just share the contact? So you are a person looking for packer mover, somebody, we have some three, four people who are great companies. Why don't we just connect? We did that, and we basically found that customer wants accountability from our side while we are out of the. How does it work?
hmm,
So we said, again, we need to basically think what customer wants and when can we invent a solution for it. So then we are the first company who invented the solution at Hoye. We are going to be the face. You are going to come and book at our place. It's our responsibility. We will figure out who are the good packers and movers in your area. We are going to rate them. We are going to monitor them, and you will get a solution which is no broker sort of guaranteed. So I think because no one has done these services ever before, neither in India nor anywhere else in the world. So the entire approach had been to keep on experimenting, tinkering, and looking at what customer is saying, and then again change, going back to a drawing board till we figure out the solution.
I think that's a really cool thread to pull on, Amit. The concept of experimenting to understand properly not just customer ko kya chahiye, what the customer wants, but also how do we build the right business model alongside it, right? So, could you give us a couple of actual stories, actual experiments that you conducted maybe in the early days on one side, and maybe what's happening today on the other, to give all of us an understanding of how to do this, or what was a kind of experiment you did to validate or understand the problem?
So, for example, when we started, earlier one of your question was how did we validate the idea? So we basically stood in front of a mall because we thought that hey, we don't know what many of our friends are giving us biased view. Either they are too nice, or they are too blunt, or they are too biased. So why don't we just ask random people?
Hmm.
And we asked random people, hey, what if we give you this solution? What if there was a company which will connect you directly with the owners, directly with the tenants? Will you use it and will you pay for it? So the answer was overwhelmingly yes. But then they asked one more thing that hey, who will do the rental agreement?
Hmm.
And we're like, hey, majority of the country, you just take a printout from Google and then you either you can just sign there or put it on a stamp paper. That's it. What's the big deal? Broker, I don't think broker adds much value in it. But no, their question was that who will do it? Because right now the broker does it. We don't know how to do it. So then you need to give us that. So it never occurred to us कि customer को चाहिए होगा. So the first thing which we did was okay, we need a rental agreement function which will do this. Then came Bombay Pune, where this gets done at the registration office because it gets registered. Maharashtra is the only place in the country where every rental agreement gets registered at the government office. So there we figured out a tech solution that can we get API from the government? Can a person go to your home, use that API, use your Aadhaar card, take your photo from the laptop, and do the rental agreement? So then we
Hmm.
figured it out. So today we do that. So you might be living in San Francisco. You don't have to come to India to do a Maharashtra registration. We basically send that device to San Francisco. We guide you, you do it. So many of those things we basically figured out thinking how can tech help us and what do the customer want and basically tying it up with together.
I think the other thread to pull, because this is interesting, and I want to stay here for a couple of seconds. The other thread to pull is this constant understanding of building the voice of the customer, right? Which is okay, what is it exactly that the customer wants, and can I build around it? So one is an experiment which is doing something to test and validate whether or not the customer actually wants it. And the other is uncovering these insights. Like the rental agreement was a great example, right? Tell me something. How much or how involved does a founder need to be in this exercise? Is it only in the early stages, or at what point does the founder slowly hand off building voice of customer to the rest of the team?
No, this is a very good question. And I think this is where many of us founders falter
Hmm.
because the typical attitude is that when a founder starts a company, he's very much glued because the company is small. He talks to the customer, he needs to talk to the customer, ends up talking to the customer. Every email is read. And then when slowly years pass, you feel, I know it. I know the industry. I have been here. I've seen thousands of customers. So we have serviced them. So we know.
Hmm.
But the issue is the customer himself is evolving and customer is becoming more and more demanding. Competition is basically changing rules of the game. So unless you are clued in, you will miss it. For example, uh, earlier, if you do a property listing, we will ask the customer as to where the property is, and he will say behind that mall or behind that shop. And behind means behind, whether it's 50 meter behind or 500 meter behind, I don't know.
Yeah.
के पीछे है वो. And we'll just put the Google Map link there, approximate. But today, after Uber came and every basically Zomato came and so on, today the tenant will complain if he uses that pin and if he doesn't land exactly in front of the house.
Hmm.
The customer has moved on and customer expectation has moved on. So now we need to change the way in which we capture a property on our platform. So unless, and I would basically say that everybody knew, everybody could see that customers are slowly trying to shift away from a broker. It was not something which was hidden. There were Facebook groups which were being made where people which were named no brokerage, no broker, etc. And people were trying to find tenants and owners on Facebook. So it was obvious but obvious to us also. But many of the other companies, like and great founders, great companies, 99 Acres, Magic Brick Housing, all great founders, they were still stuck in the 10-year back history that hey, broker की तो चाहिए ही चाहिए, broker के बिना कैसे होगा?
Correct.
And because their business model was built on that, so it was difficult for them to disrupt it. Now we have the same fear. What if we become complacent? Then there's going to be another NoBroker123.com who is going to basically disrupt us. So the question is, how do we continue to remain in touch? So for NoBroker, for all business leaders, it is compulsory to meet one customer physically every month. So you have to meet one customer physically. You may, and you have
Sorry,
to.
how do you define a business leader?
So basically, we have lots of functions, right? From rental agreement to furniture and so on and so forth. So our business guy is the guy who handles sales and operations for that function. So we basically, that will come to the culture part, but so they act as an entrepreneur for their own function. And it is compulsory that you need to physically meet one customer. So that, and let the customer vent out of whatever he did not like. So when you keep on, and I read each and every interaction which comes. So then the main objective is that we should, for example, many people are questioning how can Intel miss and Nvidia win. And if you remember, there was a book which the Intel CEO wrote, which was, which he wrote, which was about that only the paranoids win. And his Andy Grove book was all about the fact that when the world was moving from calculators to chips, how many of the companies miss it, and how he, because he remained in touch with the sales force of the customer, he knew that the world is moving. But the irony is that when the world moved further, Intel only missed it. So the same fear is with us. What if we miss the next thing which customer wants? So I think the only solution is, even if you think you know everything, keep on meeting customer, and keep on recalibrating what he wants.
I think it's really interesting. So two things. One is every business leader, defined as a person leading the function. We'll get into that in a minute. Is requested or required to meet physically an individual or a customer every month. And then the other is you get to read all these interactions. But how are you forcing yourself to get voice of customer? Is it through reading of these interactions, or are you also on these monthly visits?
So I also basically go for these monthly visits. Plus, every social media complaint which comes anywhere in the country lands into my email box. Every customer issue lands into my email box, even when now no broker is so big. So I have a broad idea as to where the problems are, what's happening. Yes, our size is big. So even a half a percentage of them becomes an issue. They'll come to me. But the main attitude is constantly reading, listening to what customer is saying, because that has been why we started it. And if we lose that link, I think somebody else is going to replace us very soon.
I think that sparks curiosity, right? So, is there any example of a product introduction or a business change that came about from these sessions, either you reading the complaints or one of the leaders talking to customers?
So I think this happens almost on a daily basis. We read about a customer. For example, we do property management services also. And if a owner complains that, hey, I have not received rent on time, then basically the entire back process starts. Why did he not receive it on time? Are we supposed to inform him? If yes, did the tenant not give on time? Is our reconciliation process not good? Is our communication process not good? What should be done if somebody doesn't pay on time? So I think the problem, once you have the problem clearly laid out, then everything which is basically in back, it starts to uncover, and then you can find out a solution. But the first step is to constantly hear the issues and also figure out a pattern in them. For example, we were very adamant that it has to be a product company. Then we loosened a little bit and we said, okay, we are going to be having phone relationship manager. But then a customer basically came and said that, hey, I live in Dubai. I have a property in India and it is vacant. I don't trust to give the keys to anyone. So I've not given it to my neighbor. I don't want to give that. And the keys are in the society office, and I don't want to give it to a broker. So now you are saying that you are non-brokerage. That's fine. You are going to send the tenant or the buyer. but who is going to open the house? So we're like, okay. So we need somebody who will open the house. We don't need a broker, but somebody who will open the house. So then only for NRIs, we launched a service where you said, okay, somebody will open the house and show it to a tenant and the buyer. So from a product angle, this is like huge. Harakiri, this is such a huge change. But we said, okay, but this is a valid problem, right? So valid problem, then you figure out the solution and you say, okay, we need to give this service. So I think this is how we are trying to basically continuously uh, uh, change ourselves.
I think it's a very clear symptom of being in love with the problem, not necessarily a solution, right?
Yeah.
The solution can keep evolving. It doesn't have to be product only. We touched upon culture, and I think this is the one that I was quite excited to talk to you about because I see so many parallels, right? So Biome, what do we do? We're a venture studio. We find really, really important problems to solve, work with an entrepreneur, surround them with the right resources, and then provide enough capital and connections to scale that business. And then no brokers problem solving is find a problem, find an internal entrepreneur, make them vertical lead. And I said, hey, you guys are running a venture studio. We just didn't know it. So I'd love to learn a little bit more about that concept, Amit.
So this is basically our secret sauce. See, the idea is public for anybody to copy. What we do, which services we have, that is available for every competitor of ours. But the secret is our culture. So I think in every founder basically needs to his or do her own journey, and there's no right answer. So I'm not saying that being a micromanager is a bad thing or it is something that doesn't work out. There are many famous Indian founders whom you know who are micromanagers. They love micromanaging and they take pride in saying that, hey, of course, I will decide the color of the button of something on the homepage. Who else will decide? Of course, I'll decide. That's fine. So that is approach which has worked for some people and it's great. But what I discovered about myself is that when I was with in consulting, I used to hate when somebody used to micromanage me or instruct me. I enjoyed it much, much more when I was able to do it on my own. So when No Broker started, and that's also my journey. Earlier, I thought I'm IT, I am guy, I will do everything. But then soon I figured out that you can only do little and you need great people to work with you. And then soon I figured out that the moment you basically have a function, I am perfectly okay if somebody commits a mistake. So that's my own self journey. I figured it out that I'm okay with it. Unless he bets the house, I'm okay with it. And I love seeing people leading a function, owning it, enjoying it, scaling it. So I saw that happiness and I felt that this is a company that perhaps I would have wanted to work in. So then that basically philosophy set in, and that's the one that we do because in many of the board meetings and still in many of the future investor meetings, a common question is, why don't you just focus on real estate?
Hmm.
Why is it that you are doing so many other things? No matter the fact that we say it is a part of the real estate journey, a guy who buys a house also need to do legal documentation, he needs to move his house, all that is fine. But the question is, why don't you just do one thing? Isn't there something called management bandwidth? But I think what we figured out was that you give huge accountability to a person, let him enjoy running that function. And so I have now become an investor in my own company. And I have these entrepreneurs who love doing what they are doing. We have formal interaction, say once in a month or once in 2 months. We have informal interaction entire day. But otherwise, so the way in which I think I will summarize it is that if a business head comes to me and asks me as to what am I required to do, what's the vision, my answer is I don't know.
That's
That's
your
for you
job.
to decide. Because you are the entrepreneur, so you tell me. My role is only to ask as an investor that whatever you are going to tell me, my role is only to ask, why not double of that? That's it.
Yeah.
And if you can answer that with a logical reason, I'm fine. You basically chase what you are doing. So I think that has been the most fun part of No Broker, having that great culture, having that very tightly knit leaders who love doing what they are doing, and then seeing them basically grow.
I think that's super empowering because you move away from the traditional SVP, VP, director kind of a path, and then you give people the autonomy to make themselves. that much more important as their vertical grows, right? I think that's a really cool way to incentivize people to build the business, right?
Yeah, because when anybody asks as to how am I going to grow in the company, I'll say that depends on you.
Yeah.
If you have say if you have say you have say 1 crore revenue a year, you make it 10 crore, you make it 100 crore, that's on you. Now nobody is stopping you. So how big you want to become, I'm not going to decide. You will decide.
Yeah.
And for every function, India is such a large country. Whatever we do is still a minuscule percentage of the size that country offers. So yeah,
I think, sticking to the concept of culture, one thing you realize is when you look at history's greatest entrepreneurs, the company is more or less an extension of the personality of the founders, right? And in your own process of self-discovery, as you mentioned a little bit earlier, no broker starts to evolve and starts to reflect. But if we go right to the start, and I'm asking this keeping in mind that there are a lot of founders that have just started their journey today, how do you go from how, or more better, how do you get intentional about building culture? So there is the 5 bullet Notion document that is shared, and then there is actually making sure people are performing, right? Or people are actually adhering to this culture. So could you tell us, how did you go about being intentional about making sure people adhere to this culture?
I think a lot basically gets said about the bigger things
Yeah.
of making culture, that you should basically be meritocratic and you should build a team, good team culture, you should care about customer. But who does not say it? Everyone says it. In which company's vision mission is it written that we are going to fleece customer, or politics will be the king here? So everybody theoretically starts with this good things. My insight has been that here the culture and the god lies in details, and that lies in small behavior. So for example, if you're talking right now, and if an office boy comes here and gives me a tea, and instead of tea if he gives me a coffee, how do I react? Do I raise my voice with him? Do I, because I can, he will not, poor guy will not be able to say anything back to me? Or should I be polite with him? That small gesture of mine will set the culture of entire floor about how to talk to the admin people. If a business leader wants has a family emergency and he messages me, how do I respond? Do I respond with, okay, please go ahead with 2 days? Or do I say, please go ahead and come back whenever you can? No questions asked. So if a vertical head takes a decision in good intention, but it backfires and company loses money, and he comes back and he informs me, how do I respond to that? Or if I observe that there are two people who are not gelling well with each other,
Hmm.
everybody knows about it. How, and one of them comes and complains to me. How do I respond to that? So I have basically figured out that once you are a leader, you are being watched constantly. Every small move of yours is watched constantly. You may like it, you may not like it, and people basically amplify that. Even investors, why investors even today in post covid, even today they want to meet face to faces, because they love to macroscopically see your body language, and they try to drive confidence from that body language. And I think the same thing is with the team. They basically try to see your mood and they try to see how you react to situations. And I think it is said that how does a culture gets made? Culture gets made because of the behavior that people do. How does a behavior get made? Behavior get made if the beliefs get strengthened. So for example, if a person comes and says that, hey, taking risk, comes with a belief that taking risk is okay in no broker. He takes the risk, things don't work out, but I support him. So now this becomes a behavior that,
Hmm.
okay, I can, this belief system was right, I was doing the right thing, now this is my behavior. If everybody behaves in that way, then this becomes a culture. So when a new person comes, he sticks to that, he sees that behavior, he assumes that belief system, and the culture gets made. So I think if you want a specific culture, you need to ensure that people who come with those beliefs or the anti of those beliefs, then you react accordingly so that the behavior gets manifested, and accumulation of that behavior is culture. But the thing which I never knew was the macroscopic way in which the leaders get observed. So yeah.
It's almost like the brightest light is shining on your every action and people are noticing
Yes.
those actions, right? So that's kind of probably why we see that companies are an extension of the founders' personalities, because people are constantly seeing. I think while people see you, there is a lot that goes on under the surface, and a lot of times, especially in the early stages, there may or may not be some level of posturing. For a lot of founders in their journey, especially in the early days when things aren't working out, probably investors are saying no all the time, or people are constantly denying the founder their vision and their belief. There are cases where doubt starts to creep in. Now, question for you, Amit, on a personal level, in the early days, two-parter, right? One is, did you ever have a phase where doubt started to creep? Hey, are we solving the right thing here? If so, what did you do, or how did you get out of it? And or is it just that, one should not feel doubt, one should just keep at the problem, keep hitting it until you solve? I just love to hear from you on a personal basis. How did you sort that out, or what was that for you?
So I want to basically tell anybody who is listening to this in terms of early entrepreneur or thinking about it, that every founder has phases of anxiety, has phases of self doubt, and has phases of fear. So being fearful, being low in confidence, and feeling nervous is something which is very, very common among all investors in all stages. So after 10 years today, there are days when I have basically have all these feelings. And I basically would extend it to say that every founder has these feelings. The texture of those feelings may change. Earlier, you may be worried about funding, then you may be worried about team, then you may be worried about growth. So the texture may change. But every founder is fearful. So when you feel a lack of confidence, when you feel self-doubt, you're not alone. Every founder is with you. Even Elon Musk is with you. So even he's having doubts at times. And for me, I think what I have figured out is that, see, whenever you have these phases, there are two things that one needs to do. One is on emotional front, and there is basically more a rational front. So on rational front, the best way out is to be extremely logical, which basically means that, for example, no broker had a broker attack. So instead of basically worrying about it and being emotional and being sad, our objective was quickly find an office so that we can move, because they are trying to break our office. This office doesn't work. Find a new office and then we'll figure it out. So the most rational you can be in a tough situation, the better it is,
Hmm.
because then your mind starts working towards a solution. If suppose you're an entrepreneur and you are not getting funding, so then you had a bad meeting, immediately come out of the room and figure out for the next meeting. Start putting effort for the next meeting, because so that your mind doesn't punish you for the bad thing which has just happened, and your mind gets busy with the new thing which is going to solve this problem, perhaps. So one is this. Second, on the emotional side, anyway, the journey of a founder is very tough. So if you have people around you who are negative, who have this negative energy, just avoid them. There is no point in convincing them. There is no point in fighting with them. It will drain you out. So and of course, there are going to be people, they may have good intention, they may have bad intention. So many of my friends in great intention said this is not going to work out, because no one in the world has ever paid in advance for a real estate deal. Everywhere in the world, they pay once the deal is done. And you are an internet company, you can't charge because there is zero evidence of this on the entire planet. How can you do it? So you hear it and you treat it with your rational mind that, okay, I'm going to take ABC steps to solve it. After that, stop interacting. Talk to someone else, because there's only a limit of willpower that you have, and that basically gets spent.
I think so. Two things. One is every time I talk to somebody that has built something of substance, whether it is a startup, entrepreneur of a small factory, or just somebody that's really gone and built something well in their own sphere, it always comes down to this, keep moving on. There's always the next thing, focus on the next thing and solve. But before we go anywhere else, I think in the book that will be written someday about Indian startups and the different journeys that we've had, there will be a chapter on No Broker's broker attack. I think it's one of the most fascinating stories. It's one of the most fascinating factoids about the address. Amit, it'd be really cool if you went a little deep into that. How did that happen? Why did that happen? What was your response? It'd be really interesting for us to hear from you.
So I think what triggered was that we were doing couple of BTL activities, below the line marketing activities in Kormangla in Bangalore. So we were basically, our team basically put some no parking boards in Kormangla. And I think that triggered the reaction from some of the brokers and their friends. And their entire thing was as to how they can destroy the office, they can break the computer, because in their mind they thought there's no cloud concept, and hence if they break laptop, the company will shut down. So they basically, suddenly we saw outside our office there were some 50-60 people who gathered. We never knew what the objective was, but then suddenly they started picking up fight with us without any reason. And then it occurred to us that these are the brokers who are coming, and they want to basically do the damage to the office. And then we were these nerdy guys who had zero real world knowledge, and we just called police. We had no contacts, no fast dial of any person, any politician, any police, nothing, no municipality, no contact at all. So we just dialed 100, and police came and took us founders to the police station while the brokers continued their harassment. Somehow we had an iron grill door, so we could save ourselves, and nothing violent happen apart from slaps, etc. But nobody was seriously hurt. But then it became impossible to basically continue there. Police clearly said that you shouldn't file an FIR because these are local guys. And we also guessed that the local brokers must be glove in hand with the police, and we have no leverage. But the surprising thing was the support which customers gave. Because see, typically in India, what happens is customers write on social media when they're unhappy,
Yeah.
but they don't say anything when they're happy. So you never fully know what's your real standing in the society. But when the attack happened, when it came in newspaper, huge amount of customers wrote to us, gave their support at a time when we were fairly unknown, and at a time
Yeah.
when we were actually not closing that many number of deals also. So I wouldn't say that I would find many people who would have gotten house through us, but still the support came. And then basically we overnight, a person from municipality came, claiming to from municipality came. He said you have to vacate the office within 2 hours, else I am
Yeah.
going to lock it, because this is commercial activity doing in a residential area. And we're like, hey, there's another startup in next door. What about him? And we had, despite being so educated, we had no common sense to say that, hey, you can't do it. You need to give us a written notice. Of course, we'll get more than 2 hours. How can you lock the office? There must be some process behind
Yeah.
it. But we were just too scared. We thought, yeah, some government official has come, and we just wrapped the office. And um, so when I look back, it was a horrible incident. But our Japanese investor said that this is going to be the best thing which happened to you, which was very counterintuitive. But in weird way, it did, because it made the team very strong. And I must tell you that recently also in Pune, there were many field relationship managers just few days back who were beaten up by a couple of brokers
Oh, okay.
as soon as basically few days back, after 10 years also. So some incidents keep on happening once in a while where basically brokers take violent action against our people. And that's the reason why we never publish our full address on Google, or whatever we publish is the wrong address. So we try to basically keep a distance. Over the years, what has happened is that brokers have also accepted us. We have
Hmm.
also starting charging some money, so we are not just fully free. So there is now a balance, but yes, some incident keep on happening. While see, the truth is that if a broker is good, if he cares about his customer, there is no way that we can ever snatch that business. The customer is going to continue with the broker. Broker will keep on adding value to him, and owner or tenant will be happy to pay him more fees than us, because his problem is getting solved. It's only those brokers who are actually not solving the problem that customer is coming to us. So even 10 years back, we said that, and even today, I would tell you that no matter what happens, no broker will never have more than 70% market share. We have 10% market share today, but even in future, we'll never have 100% because there are always going to be some individuals who will care about their client, and that business cannot be snatched.
So Amit, I think that story you shared would have been probably one of the most interesting emotional roller coasters that a founder can go through. At one side, you have, whether you want to call it the competition or not, trying to shut you down. And then on the other side, you have customer love, an outpour of support. So it would have been a real sort of emotional journey for you. I think we've all heard about day N, which is the day of the attack. Could you tell us a little bit about day N plus one? What did you do the next day? How did you recoup? Kya hua tha? What happened?
So, interesting question. So, day end plus one, we had no office and we did not know where to go. Now, this also basically brings me to this very interesting thing that whatever we were thinking as founders was completely different from what people were thinking in the team. And so I'll just explain more. So in our mind, of course, we were stressed about it that this attack has happened. We are worried about customers. We are worried about the fact that there is now no customer phone line. We had to put up a message on the website about it, and so on. So while this was happening, and we were trying to figure out as to where can the new office be, but the team members were thinking second level, third level, uh, uh, possible issues, thinking like that, hey, wherever we go, the broker attack may keep on happening. So will the company exist or will they close down? What will investors say? Will they support or will they get worried about this attack? What about my bus commute? I took this job because my home is here and I was taking bus number one. Now we don't know where the office will be. How will I have to change my home? So many second degree and third degree worries and fear. Will I get my salary? Will no broker make revenue? So there were many fears which basically came in team's mind. And I used to think it is obvious that attack has happened. We are going to find another place. But no, it is not obvious. And there are many worries which people have which are much deeper. And the only way out was to basically talk to them. Uh, and this, I am, as a first generation entrepreneur, I am really surprised and amazed as to how much communication people may want. We started with 2 member team, then 10 member team, 30 member team. Now suppose we are 70, 80 people, we are on the same floor, everybody knows each other's name, we see each other whole day. Why do we need this town hall? So, but every Friday we used to have this town hall in on the terrace where all of us will come and we'll talk about how business is and what has happened. And I always used to wonder whether there's any point towards it because they anyway know.
Yeah.
But now when I look back and when I talk to our teammates who are still continuing with us after 10 years, so there are many people who continue with us after 10 years, they say they used to look forward to that. And there are lots of questions because they were worried whether a company working out of a home will sustain, will they have their jobs? And even today, after 10 years, with my business leaders who are IT IM guys, fairly well paid, highly educated, know everything. Even with them, I every Monday I do an anonymous town hall where the questions come in an anonymous Excel sheet format, and I reply to them on a real time basis. And people often say that this has been one of the most strong points of building a strong culture. So my learning is, and I would basically say it to the future entrepreneurs also, that you may think that all the questions are answered. You may think that everybody on the floor is in the same page, but they are not. And many of the problems or small things that they are worried about, you have to hear them out. And no team is small for communication and for question answers and for doubts. Even a 10 member team needs that so-called town hall.
I think that is super interesting. One of the things we always talk to our entrepreneurs as well as you over communicate. You make sure that people truly understand at all different levels, and the town hall is a fantastic way to do it. There's a reason why all of our big startups today continue to employ the town hall concept. I'd like to switch gears. There's something that NoBroker did that I found to be fascinating, and that is in the early days, you view yourself, though some investors may or may not, as a network effect business. And to bootstrap a network, you need to scale up the supply side. You launched a really cool app to start scaling up the supply side. So, what was the problem, and how did that click to earn concept come about? That would be a really cool story for us to hear as well.
So that was a pretty was and is a pretty tough problem. And I would also basically share a couple of learnings which came from it. So one is that when you are trying to make this network effect business, then you need this micro matchmaking, which means that a owner in Bandra needs a tenant or a buyer in Bandra for the same price that he's looking for in the same month. You can't basically find a tenant in other parts, say in Khar, right? Because you need that micro matchmaking. So this is a very difficult thing. Uh, the same problem is faced by any business which is trying to get both the supply and the demand side work in tandem. And the trick is that you start small. Don't fall into this vanity metric that I have launched 4 cities, even after you get funding. So there was a very good founder, ex-IIT Kanpur, who started another company which was doing exactly the same thing that No Broker is doing. In fact, they started before us and they got funding before us. So everything was working in their favor, not in ours. So we are not the first company who did no brokerage. They did before us. And that company, despite being a great founder, did not work out. Why? Because they launched the moment they got funding, they launched in many cities. And the same pressure came on us also because see, even investors basically think it's a copy paste model and how if you've done 1 city, why don't you do 4 cities? But my question is that if a property owner in Bangalore is not happy, why does he care if you have a property in Meerut also or in Lucknow also? He doesn't care. Similarly, buyer doesn't care whether you are doing in Hyderabad. He wants his problem to be solved. So unless you solve that problem, why are you moving far? So my learning is that if you have made a solution, if you're suppose you're living in say Bombay, and you have come up with the idea, the smaller set that you can test it in, the better it is. It will cost you less. So why Bombay? Choose only Powai. Do this
Right.
experiment only in Powai, only for Powai customers. Do things which are non-scalable. You may even distribute pamphlets. Don't think about whether it will scale later or not. Just test it on a smaller base so that your economics work better. You can check the product market fit and then only go to more cities. So you are right that this is more pronounced for a company which has both demand and supply requirements. But I would say for any company, if you have an idea, don't get into this trap of launching more cities, more areas, because investors might feel happy. Your friends might call you and congratulate you, but finally it's your your business. So you use your first principles and do what is most easiest for you, most economical for you.
I think what I'm taking away from this is two things. So one is forego width for depth. And if you're building a networked business, it doesn't really matter about the overall network density. It is more about the atomic networks within that and the density you're building within each.
Yes.
I think that is a really cool lesson because we very often have, even with the best of intentions, and like you mentioned, sometimes the most pedigreed people dissuaded or probably misled into building as much width and overall density as possible. But it's about going small, building an atomic network, building density within that network, proving it, and only then repeating it.
I'll tell
Uh,
you why it is difficult,
yeah.
because growth is addictive. You are you can do it in one locality, great, but that locality, cracking that locality is going to take time. And you are going to have months and weeks where you will see very little growth. Just by adding more localities, more cities, more geographies, the growth will come. So hence you will feel great. But solving a problem in a tiny macrocosm and cracking it is far more valuable, as common sense basically says. Yeah. Mhm.
And then NoBroker did something really cool to build network density, right? You launched the Click to Earn app. Could you tell us more about that one? Like, that was a really cool hack.
So I think it is about doing anything that you can do to get customers, even when it is non-scalable, and then later figuring out if you can make it scale. So we basically, a lot of people say in Bangalore, they put a to-let board in front of their house saying that this house is available for rent. And we felt that these are exactly the customers who wants to avoid a broker, because they are asking the passerbys to come in and look at the property. So we used to click photos whenever we were on the road, and come back, ask our call center to call these owners and request them to list the property on our site. So that was a hack that we basically found. And I basically suggest that every entrepreneur should not think about scalability in start for getting customers. You get your friends, you get your friend of friends, you get them to install, do anything that is required, but get the initial customers, because they are the most tough to get. After we got some properties, then later as we became bigger, we thought, now how do we basically scale it, or how do we make it more institutionalized? But these are random photos, random people were basically giving it to us. So we thought, can we crowdsource it? So there was a person named Shiva in our team. He was in marketing. He said, what if I say that instead of us clicking the photos, anybody in the city can click the photo, put it on the app, and we'll pay him 100 rupees. And that seemed very odd. Why will somebody even look? We are not famous. Who will download our app? Why will somebody take this trouble? But we did it. We told some college guys that this is available. Some of them tried it. They made some money. Then they started taking their bike in the weekend, covering city, covering many localities. And then suddenly it basically grew. So today we get decent percentage of our, even today, of our property listing through this route, which was basically a hack converted into a scalable solution.
This is what I love, truly what I love about No Broker, the journey, and what I really hope people listening to this are able to imbibe. It's not just finding the right problem, but a truly unconventional way to stick the landing. And that is seen across. I think this is a fantastic example of solving for network density as a hack, and still at the scale that No Broker is today, yielding a benefit from it. Taking that, I think what I'm seeing unfold, and please share whatever you can with Convozen. It's a really cool thing that I have noticed, where you're building this SLM, but probably the first example that I have personally come across of a prop tech company selling SaaS to edtech. So, what is Convozen? How did this come about? Could you tell us a little bit more? Because I think that's fascinating.
So basically, our objective always has been as to how do we use technology to solve customer problems, not the other way around. See, many a times companies come up with solutions because they are cool to build. And then they think about, okay, whether they will solve any problem or not. And this practically happens, right? Because the engineering team, the tech guys want to make something cool for the sake of it first. But that has been, I think, a very cornerstone that we said, okay, first find the problem, then we'll solve it. So anything which is not helping revenue, customer service, efficiency, we are not going to work on. So because no broker has a very vast coverage in terms of call center people, and because we call lakhs of customers per month, so we have a huge database of all of these recorded calls. All of these recorded calls are in different languages, which is basically be it Tamil, be it Bengali, be it Marathi. And we started with initially, so we took all of this data and then trained the model to come up with a solution which can help us internally, which is as to how do we find out whether this call went well, whether the call center person did the right thing, whether the customer was in a bad mood, and hence what the solution could be. So I think over the years, whatever we learned from our own call center guys, from that data, from those conversations, that we are offering through this solution to people who are outside also, so that everybody can benefit. And it is especially with the Indian context, with the Indian languages, that makes us apart.
I think, like I said, fascinating. The fact that there is a prop tech unicorn building these kind. I'm surprised you haven't rebranded to NoBroker.ai. So I think sticking to unconventional things. Let's take ourselves back. Funding winter is in full force. NoBrokerhood is coming up, and you raise funding from a not so obvious investor, right? Google comes on board to back the NoBrokerhood vision, and the idea behind No Brokerhood was obviously to get people more to drive more usage towards the no broker properties and apps, right? But walk us back to just at the start of you doing this round, how did you think of, was it Google inbound? Was it outbound? How did you crack this partnership? Just tell us a little bit more about that round, because I'm sure it wasn't a breeze.
We worked with Google anyway for the past 10 years, be it our cloud, be it basically marketing. So we have been in touch with the Google team for very long. But over the years, I think what has happened is that we discovered that NoBrokerhood, which is basically an app, a system which manages all the apartment gated societies. So whatever be the gate entries, be it the maintenance payments, everything basically the app manages. And over the years, we basically made it bigger. We basically now we serve millions of customers. We are in thousands of societies across the country. And I think as we grew, Google also noticed the growth in the numbers, the growth in entries, the growth in interactions. And it is basically Google's philosophy that they want to integrate closely with companies who are driving customer behavior. So it is in their interest. They basically want to make sure that they support and those are Google friendly. For us, having Google as a partner, taking Google's help is like a dream come true. So we also basically wanted to work with them. And when you basically try to take any funding from Google, there's a longish process in which both their Indian as well as overseas teams are involved. There are multiple Indian startups who pitch for that. So, so after many, many years, we went into a room where there were other startups pitching for the same funding, and we basically pitched alongside them. But I think the overall experience was great. It is amazing to have Google as a partner and them trying to help us build No Brokerhood as a more stronger entity is the icing on the cake.
That's really awesome. On the topic of investments, you're an investor yourself. You have a portfolio that makes most funds turn green with envy. Could you tell me a little bit more about what thesis you're following? What is it that gets you excited to cut an angel check?
So, angel investment, I will tell you the both the pluses and minuses. The minus is that as a person who is running his own company full-time basis, I am not in a position to actually research another startup in detail. Neither, I think VCs are in the best position to do it. I think what gives me the kick, and I basically don't do it much now, but whatever investments we have done, my main interest is to basically interact with the founder because that founder is working on some other problem and is passionate about it. So it's amazing to meet another founder who is so passionate on a different problem and trying to vicariously live that experience of his and in any small way trying to help because it's you will be surprised that over that when you talk to a fresh entrepreneur, sometimes I am surprised that there are so many small things which are very obvious to me today but which are not obvious to me then. And he's in the same boat. So being able to help him, but even for small things that actually how much you should share with your board members, how frequently should you interact with your investors, how ceremoniously should you take their instructions or not? These are very, very real questions. Whether you should expand quickly or should you focus more on burn? Should you raise funding quickly? Should you raise large round or small round? All of these questions seems very commonsensical, but they have a very large impact on where do you go as a startup. And it's basically huge fun to give whatever inputs I can over the years that we have learned. And I think that basically is great to interact with when I talk with in these startups.
I resonate with that. I think what gives me energy when I'm in this industry is being able to work alongside founder and to be able to say, okay, fine, hey, we navigated this. Now, whether we did it terribly or very well, that's different. But the fact that we can navigate things together and hopefully do things a little bit to a little bit of a better outcome is what gives me energy. I think, Amit, I'd just like to conclude by asking you, what is your advice to someone that's in two minds? They're back to where you were. They're in the middle of their career, early 30s. They've got this idea that's burning in them. What is your advice to all these people that are either just about to take that jump into entrepreneurship or have just taken the jump very recently? What is it that you want to speak directly to them about?
So see, my advice would be that it is obvious that this journey is going to be tough. So don't be surprised by that. It's obvious that you are going to have phases of doubt, anxiety, fear. That's not a bug, it's a feature. So be okay with it. Make sure that you have enough funds for you to sustain for a year or 2 year that you are trying to do it. But the big picture is that India is going to do amazingly well. There are going to be startups who are going to solve myriad type of problems. So if you are an entrepreneur who has already started or thinking to start, I think don't think too much, because there is thinking too much will not yield you any more data. But what can happen is that your idea may be then implemented by someone else, and you will then live to see that idea become big while constantly thinking that had I done this. So I will go back to what you said initially, that between the error of commission and error of omission, it's better to do the error of commission. And if you are burning with an idea, just do it. Make sure you have some money for a year, 2 year, and have that confidence. Nothing will go wrong. In worst case, you will perhaps lose those 1 or 2 years, but you will not lose them. You will learn much more than what you are perhaps learning in your current job. And if you are very fearful, then perhaps the soft landing is to basically join another startup, work with them, learn the ropes of that of the game, and then do it on your own. But I would say, I often say that being a successful entrepreneur is the best job in the world. You have huge satisfaction, no one to report to, a huge satisfaction of seeing what you are building, what your team is building. So there is not much to think about. You will never have enough data. So if you are burning with some ideas, just jump in. If you already jumped in, keep away the negative guys, focus on your goal, be extremely rational whenever any doubt creeps in. And the future belongs to people who keeps on trying. So be a fighter. That's the only way out.
Amit, thank you so much for your time. You were open, candid, you shared so many stories. I'm certain that after listening to this, there are future founders that are going to feel a little bit more comfortable. And there are current founders right now that are going to feel a little less lonely. Thank you so much. And that was really awesome. Really appreciated, really enjoyed everything we talked about today.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Farhad.